What is up, homies? Welcome back to another episode of the Heroes Reforged podcast. I'm going to get this out of the way now. We are going to be talking about spoilers for Thunderbolts. So if you don't want to be spoiled, we'll give you a little bit of a disclaimer before we get into spoilers. But I'm very excited to talk about this movie. We have some amazing guests. Housekeeping, if you guys want to check out our uncut reactions for Andor, The Last of Us, anything that we're watching, check out our Patreon. It's all available on there. Also subscribe. If you are brand new here, I don't know how you ended up here, but welcome.
Also, we have other shows on our Patreon that are not on YouTube yet.
So many.
My Adventures with Superman.
Yeah.
That show's great. And that's on Patreon.
28 days later.
Bad Batch.
The movies.
You want
Bad
anxiety?
Batch. Yeah, the 28 movies. The 28 later movies. What's
All
the
the
franchise
Jurassic
called?
Parks.
All of the Jurassics.
Yeah, Camp Cretaceous. Thanks, Hector.
That's great. Yeah, so that's all on Patreon.
Nope.
Any other housekeeping?
Nope. We got some amazing guests, though.
You bring that box of Wheaties? Where did that go?
Oh, I didn't.
Shit. I
Is that
put
why
it in
you
your
gave it to
lap.
me?
I said, fold this to a box. We have to go. We're going. And you left it in the car?
Parks the car, swerves the car into the park. He's like, here you go. And I'm like, I don't know what this is for.
Guys, we've got some amazing guests. You're looking at them right now. We have from the Phase Hero podcast, Brandon Davis, Jenna Anderson.
High fives. High
Let's
fives.
go.
High fives. Woo.
This is the crossover that everyone's been waiting for.
Yes, we're so happy
Great.
to have them here in LA. We're so happy to have them on the show. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
You guys are crushing the game.
We should have given you a shot of something.
Adrenaline. Please.
You're doing great. You've been all over the world.
Yeah.
Now you're here.
Yeah. Hey,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
if I could be anywhere in the world, it's right here. No, yeah, I have, but I'm here.
We saw Brandon last night at the Thunderbolts premiere.
Yeah.
We were on the red carpet. It was super fun. He'd already seen the movie. Last night was your second time watching it.
Yeah.
And then Jenna, you were watching it at another screening somewhere else in town last night as well for your first time.
The Burbank IMAX.
Yes.
Very nice.
I just want to get right into it.
Hold on.
Really?
Hold on.
I do.
I'm dying to talk about this.
So badly because of the ramifications.
I spent the night at Hector's house, and I could just see his brain going.
Texting me at 3 a.m. like, we should ask Jenna this. We should ask her about this.
I'm like, I'm trying to sleep. Shut up.
Oh, she's an encyclopedia.
The entire car ride over, they
Yeah.
were like grilling me on stuff, and we were talking
Yeah.
about stuff.
I was in the
Grilling.
car- I was in the car, and I'm like, this is a whole podcast.
Like, this
Why
is
are we
how
not
I'm waking
recording
up
this?
today. Is talking. I don't need coffee. We can just talk about this.
I'm a terrible male fan. I was like, you like comics? Name all the Marvels. Name all the Marvel comics. Name 1,000.
You gotta watch Jenna's video on Batman. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
fine. It's 3 a.m. I'll do it.
3-hour video.
Great. No, okay. You told me to hang back. What's
We're
on
going
your
to
mind
talk
right now?
non-spoilers first. Let's
Okay.
get initial reactions. Maybe out of the theater reactions. How you feeling after the second time? How you feeling after the first time?
Okay.
Let's talk. Just non-spoilery.
You go first.
I love this movie.
Yeah.
And I liked it better the second time. Like, I really liked it the first time. The second time around, when I wasn't trying to unpack and predict what's coming, when you're just there with the emotion, you're seeing it all. The first act was more expositional than I realized the first time because I was just in it the first time, just trying to pay attention to what's coming next. Second time, I was like, oh, okay, they're catching you up on Falcon and Winter Soldier, on Black Widow, on Ant-Man and the Wasp, all the things that they're assuming you might not have watched. Or if you did, it's all that. I don't know. For me, the two things it did really well were, one, it made me want to see these characters again, and none of them in particular were characters that they weren't characters I didn't like, but they weren't characters that I was like, I really want to see these characters again. Dude, you know who I want to see the most after this is John Walker.
Yeah.
Dude, the same way.
He's such an ass,
asshole.
dude.
Yeah.
But that makes him fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
love to
So
hate
fun.
him.
Yeah.
But I mean, what they did with Yelena and Red Guardian, like this,
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And then the other thing was just the obvious metaphors for like depression, suicide, the void of it all is. It goes deeper than I expected a Marvel movie to do with those heavy themes. And that meant a lot to me. And it's like a message that felt so organic to the plot. The message never like superseded what was going on with the characters. It just happened with them. And the way they found a visual representation for your family and friends helping you overcome something like that.
I choked me up.
Yeah.
Oh, both times got me.
Wow. That's
And I'm
great.
sitting there in the theater, and I'm next to Joe Deckelmeyer from Screen Rant last night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not crying. You can't. No.
Look at my direction.
He's already released an article on Screen Rant. Brandon Davis.
Brandon Davis
Phase
cried.
Hero
This
Crybaby.
guy.
And people clicked on it just to find out who.
Yeah. Jenna, what were your thoughts?
I'm in the same boat. I thought that this movie was incredible. I like the grief and the mental health of it all is not something I ever would have expected. Like the thing I keep going back to is if you told me in 2014 when I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier religiously, like that was my favorite movie, and I also was like discovering what mental health stuff even looked like. Like if you told me this movie existed at that time, I would not have believed you. Like it is beyond my wildest dreams in that way.
It did kind of feel like after Falcon Winter Soldier and seeing some of these characters when we saw them last, it did sort of feel like, well, we'll never see them again. We'll never revisit that
That's
again.
how the MCU has felt in general.
A little bit.
Yeah.
For the past few years.
I think that's why like a lot of this movie felt so satisfying was because it was like we were picking up on threads more intentionally than a lot of the projects have been lately. Like it did still feel like an event movie, even with characters who, like you said, like we liked, but we didn't really get the space to fully love them yet. And like to your point about John Walker, I think I completely turned around on him over the course of the movie because the movie isn't afraid to acknowledge that he is an asshole. Like they definitely leaned into it in a way, and I think like the tone of the comedy that they landed on served all of the characters so well. Like there's not a weak link in the cast. There's the action sequences are so fun. Like I was just very pleasantly surprised.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Augustine?
To turn around on John Walker.
Yes.
As a brown man,
We hated that guy.
he was like, if there was a negative,
number one.
if there was a negative number he could
Yeah.
be at, he was at the bottom of that list, right?
Come on.
He
But-
disrespected the Dora Milaje. He disrespected Sam Wilson.
I will say though, this movie did make me like him a smidge more. Like he's definitely a character who I completely wrote off before this movie.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm like, you embraced the thing that could have made you insecure in the thing, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of there that I can grab onto and give me hope that I'm like, okay, this guy's gonna be really rad in the future.
Yeah.
But I also left that movie not expecting what on all the subjects they touched on and the character work that was done to get to those points. The acting, the camera work, just everything was just so stellar to get to that. It's definitely more exposition than we're used to in Marvel movies, but I think that was kind of needed at this point.
Totally.
Because we're used to the wham bam, like just big spectacle of movies, and to bring this movie and make it so introspective and like think about your feelings and your homies and like how things affect you in real life. The movie was great. I didn't expect it at all.
I am glad that Brandon brought up the thing of like, there's more exposition than you noticed the first time. So only watching it the first time last night, I loved how the characters were catching up on each other,
Yeah.
but then also the odd. So when you just said that right now, I was like, yes, you're right. Because when characters are basically calling each other out on their shit, that's the catch up.
Yeah.
But it fits very organically within the story.
Yeah.
The humor felt right on point too.
Yeah.
But then you even have moments where like it's Yelena and Ava and John in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
comparing their gadgets
That
and
was
stuff.
great. I
And there's little things like that I feel like really they build the character. They're just fun story. They're not moving the story forward.
Sure.
It's just you get to spend time with them, cracking jokes at each other.
Yeah.
And John Walker's the butt of the joke the whole time. So I
Yeah.
bet you enjoyed that.
I loved it. I was like, yeah, more of that, please.
Yeah, that's true.
But then it just also lets you know who these characters are. If you
Yeah.
didn't watch Black Widow and then see
Yeah.
her again in Hawkeye,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
if you didn't watch Ant-Man and the Wasp,
Yeah.
it was really well done.
Yeah.
Adam, overall
Yeah,
thoughts.
well, that's a big thing for me. Is I always look at the movie as, is this a possible entry point for a new viewer?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it feels like it, not necessarily. Like you need all the stuff that comes before to really get you invested and to really understand what's going to happen. And that's what I think I loved about the exposition stuff was if you hadn't watched any of that stuff or you were kind of vaguely familiar, and you don't really remember all the details and all the nuances, the movie does a good job of highlighting, I think, what the most important parts of it are. So when you go into it and you're like, oh yeah, John Walker, he was kind of a dick in that show. I don't remember all the details other than he murdered someone and everything that came before and after it. Because there is a lot of character work that they do. But then in this movie, they really expand on that. I was like, damn, wow, you really see how bad he is, what he has to work on, and where he kind of ends up and how he treats everybody and how everyone treats him. He is kind of the butt of the joke, but it works in the context of the movie really well.
And one moment happened where I was like, "Oh shit! Actually, I do feel bad for him."
Yeah,
you know,
they
one
really
little
lean in.
one little reveal of his life and his backstory and his story But my overall thoughts are the same as you guys. I love that this film is low stakes and then it goes high stakes, but then back down to lower stakes.
Yeah.
You don't need every one of these Marvel movies to be the big world ender.
Right.
But I at least liked, without spoilers, that the end really set up for like, okay, this next one's going to be crazy.
Wait, can I? This is sort of a spoilery question about something
Okay.
that doesn't happen.
Then let's go right into spoilers right
Let's
here.
give a little. Adam, you want to blink it on screen? We're gonna.
Got you.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay, now we're getting into spoilers. Sorry, producer Alex has not seen this movie. Okay, I got the thumbs up. Okay, go ahead.
Well, this is a spoiler and something that doesn't happen. Was I the only one feeling like, where are Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Fisk?
100%.
All the time.
The-
All the
100%.
time.
I know. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll have Fisk talk about it in
Yeah.
season 2. We'll be like, when the city was engulfed in darkness, I was these vigilantes. Okay, fine. That's all we need.
Yeah, you can't not acknowledge
Avengers.
that. I feel like
Yeah.
that's something that is, I feel like, going to have some sort of ripple effect. But yeah, it is wild with Daredevil. Like, if we're supposed to be viewing these as like chronological in terms of
Exactly.
release.
Yes.
Daredevil might not have seen what happened, but Fisk and Spider-Man.
Maybe he felt it. He would have felt it. He's all of a sudden in his backstory, like, what the hell?
New York
I
is
hear,
dark. It's been
Why can't I
dark.
see again?
I smell my dad getting killed again.
Yeah.
I see this
I
happening.
just heard a little girl disappear.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I should probably
the
pop
heartbeats,
over
the
there.
heartbeats of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's heard all
and
that.
I think that's the thing now, because when they get into the whole like rights and licensing thing of like, well, we can't
Yeah.
use this character in the show. I'm like, oh my god, figure it out.
Yeah.
because you.
I
Like,
know.
Fisk was in a movie. Like they had
Yeah.
Kingpin
Wilson
in
Fisk?
a movie. Yeah, because Vincent D'Onofrio said they can't use me in movies. They
Okay.
can't make it, or they can't make it. I don't know if he said they can't make a Kingpin movie or they can't put me in movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Fisk was in the Daredevil movie in 2000, whatever that
Three,
was.
the Ben Affleck,
Yeah.
Michael
Right,
Clark Duncan.
right, right.
Rest
So-
in peace. Yeah.
What are the rights now? Why is
But then
the
Yeah.
Disney
Yeah.
bought that studio, so
Yeah.
do they not
Is
now
it
have the?
is it that there's like a TV like Netflix clause or
I don't
something?
know.
Well, is
Yeah.
is
I don't know.
Kingpin classified as a Spider-Man character with rights?
No, Daredevil.
No.
So it's like Sony
Yes.
doesn't have movie rights to.
No.
I don't know how that works. I don't know.
Although he was in Spider-Verse.
with Spider-Man
Yeah.
not being in a TV show, that makes more sense to me because I'm sure there is some like.
Oh, Spider-Man
fine.
can't be in a TV show.
Right.
That I do.
Yeah.
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 that I
Yeah.
do know.
Well-
not live action.
Listen, everything we're saying now, 10 years ago, the three of us would be saying like it would be so great if Spider-Man was in the
Marvel,
MCU. And then he was. And
6
it would
months
be,
later,
you know,
we're like, holy shit!
it would
Yeah,
be so
remember
great
that
if,
day when they made that deal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yes, we shot Silly String.
Oh yeah.
We had Spider-Man balloons and everything.
Very excited.
Here's that clip.
I think it reminds me, I just saw this yesterday or the day before where somebody posted on Twitter or something, just a comic book panel of a Marvel book. I don't know which one it is, but it just says like New York. It says, yeah, Jenna will know. As I describe this panel,
We'll see. It is early.
here's the encyclopedia. We go to the official handbook of the Jenna universe. This was a panel that just said like New York, and it showed like the buildings, and there's just a little picture of Spider-Man swinging in.
Oh yeah, I did see that going around the other day. Yeah, because I think it's in a Fantastic Four book, and people were
yeah.
just saying of like it's great to see him in that one panel, even if it's not like he has nothing to do with the story. Like he's just
Because
there for
it's
the
just
sake of
setting
being there.
of New York.
Yeah.
But as we were watching Thunderbolts last night, I was thinking about that, and I was like, it'd be so cool if he swung by.
Yeah.
But the problem is you cannot do that for a movie because movie audiences will be like, oh great, here
Put
comes
him in the
Spider-Man.
story, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
in the story.
Yeah.
He's going to be in Act 3. He's a part of the, Tom
Yeah.
Holland is here. You can't do those fun little comic book connective little Easter egg things.
I wouldn't be mad.
You would.
I wouldn't be
would.
mad if they did.
Yeah, Twitter would take it into
But then they
something
played
else.
the Spider-Man theme song
I
in
know,
Daredevil.
I know.
Yeah.
Guys, I think we're moving towards it. I think that maybe it's a swerve, and I imagine that if Marvel, it feels like as an outsider looking in, if Marvel Studios does get their way, they do want to have a grounded Spider-Man 4. They want to
Yeah.
have Vincent D'Onofrio,
hope so.
Kingpin, and Daredevil be in Spider-Man 4 in some capacity. If any company on the planet could figure it out, it's the Walt Disney Corporation. I'm sure they could figure it out. Here's what I want to get into with spoilers, because we're talking a little bit about this in the car on the way over. A little bit about the comics
What
and
happened
about
before I got
and
there?
about
It was a long
Century.
It was a long drive.
Yeah, traffic happened.
Yeah.
You're not used to it. This is LA traffic, baby. But so for those of you that don't know about the Sentry in the comic books, I love the way the Sentry was depicted in the movie, and I think that they basically hit all angles. And one of my favorite things about the Sentry in the books is that he is eventually on a team called Dark Avengers, and that team is run by Norman Osborn. And weirdly enough, Norman Osborn in that book is drawn to kind of look like Tommy Lee Jones. So picture like a Tommy Lee Jones,
Yep.
like a Green Goblin. So, but Norman manipulates Bob.
Yeah.
And he does it so well, and there's some great writing in that. I think it was Brian Michael Bendis that wrote that book. So I was not expecting Valentina to basically be the sort of Norman Osborn role, but I was so happy watching it going, oh, it's Val. She's the Osborn. She's messing with Bob, and I thought they did a great job.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I mean, they Oscorp, Ox Group.
Yeah.
Bro.
You know,
Bro.
I had to do
Is
a
that
double
gonna-
take.
I know,
Like,
I
did you
really
say
thought I
Oscorp?
misheard it.
What is
Yeah.
Ox Group?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I mean the introduction of the New Avengers is
Yeah.
just like him saying Dark Avengers.
Like, yeah, that
Yes.
moment in the comics, like they very much emulated it. And like my co-host Jamie was sitting next to me and she was like, why didn't they call them the Dark Avengers? And I'm like,
Oh, no.
in universe, I get why that doesn't make sense. I get why New Avengers is like a better branding,
Yes.
but like it is clearly emulating that moment just in their own way.
Yeah. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if a sequel to this was just called Dark Avengers.
Yeah.
Because maybe, look, the spoiler at the end. What, a sequel? What?
Sequels in the MCU in 2025.
Yeah, maybe not. So when we see this in the year 2040,
Yeah.
when they get
By
back
the
to
time we see
Sebastian Stan will still be there.
yeah.
Do you think they make a Blu-ray like a 4K with a variant that says the New Avengers and not
that'd be
Thunderbolts?
cool.
That'd be pretty.
Oh,
bad.
that would
Yeah,
be
just
great.
make the insert like flippable.
Or if it's
Yeah.
like lenticular, like you turn it and
Yeah.
it changes, that'd be cool.
Or at least
Okay.
like a
Guys,
pamphlet.
physical media is dying. They're not going to do any of it.
That's
Free
all.
idea for you, home media release
They won't do
side
it.
of Disney Marvel.
Put a
There you
3D
go.
Blu-ray in there.
The
Yeah.
asterisk was Jake Schreier's idea. He told me.
Oh, cool.
At the
Oh,
end.
really?
Yeah, he
Cool.
said I had this idea. I pitched it to Kevin. Kevin liked it. Then it was in marketing, and I was like, oh shit, this has to work.
Does this work? We have to sell this?
yeah.
That's really
That's
great.
amazing.
Hell yeah.
Oh shit! I just had a thought and I completely forgot it. Well, no, the ending. Talking about the spoiler of the ending with the team arguing, and also just by the way, side note, I love John Walker's beret. I love their new looks. We're great, but
And I love how Bucky looks like a G.I. Joe or something.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
super
I love-
80s.
Well, that hairpiece. I mean, it's definitely a hairpiece. They filmed
It's a
that a few
helmet.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
they filmed that was
Because now he's got a shaved head.
Yeah.
It was like their
Yeah,
shawarma
so I-
scene
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they filmed after
Yeah.
the
but it
fact.
wasn't. It was directed by the Russos.
Oh, okay. See, I thought it was going to be Jake because like the way it's lit felt very much like the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Is that just going to be a
I felt differently.
I felt the
Okay.
opposite.
I felt it was like very aesthetically different than the rest of the
I mean,
movie.
the colors definitely were warmer,
Yeah.
but I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
maybe this is a similar sort of thing. But like, that's interesting. That makes
Yeah,
me like
I watched
more
it, I was like, why does
optimistic.
this feel
than-
like
yeah.
it's something else? It's
very
Yeah.
colorful.
So, okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that.
So do we think that that's just going to be a scene in Avengers Doomsday? The same way that like
No.
the end of Doctor Strange with Thor was like, that's just plugged into Thor
I feel
Ragnarok.
like they did a costume test and they were like, well, now let's just shoot that end credit bit.
Okay.
I think
I think like Captain Marvel was a very similar
That's
sort
it.
of thing of like you see like Steve and Natasha and all of them like looking at all the people who
Yeah.
got blipped. I think we'll
gotcha.
see like a continuation of that
Okay.
moment, but we might not, or like an abridged version, but maybe not that exact scene.
So we've got
Because it leads into some
shenanigans, some big things. So now we've got these two teams because I love that post-credit scene because we get the revelation that like Sam has already assembled the Avengers. And Adam and I were looking at the lineup. First of all, Adam, throw that image back up on the screen. He did a beautiful graphic that actually had all the cast, if you didn't want to look at all the chairs, Adam just like grabbed all the,
Because you know me, I got all the time in the world to fuck around in Photoshop.
The chairs were great. The chairs were great, but
chairs were great.
a little visual image that Adam did with the announced cast of Doomsday. And I think looking at it, it's like basically anybody that's not a Thunderbolt
Yeah.
and anybody that's not a Fox X-Men and anybody that's not Loki, God of Stories, is probably going to be on Sam Wilson's new Avengers or his Avengers team, which
Right.
was
Yes, you've got Ant-Man, you've got Black Panther, M'Baku, Namor, Shang-Chi, Falcon, Loki, we don't know where he's going to end
probably
up.
not.
Thor.
Thor, Mighty Thor, and then the rest are X-Men characters.
And then Sam Wilson, Captain America.
Right.
So this is your group. And I was like,
And
maybe.
then it's like Kamala Khan. Where does,
Yeah.
Kamala
Right,
show up
but
in
this
all
team, it's like maybe M'Baku's on the team, maybe not. Maybe he's
Yeah.
in the film in that sort of supportive capacity that like he's in the Wakanda scenes
Yeah.
as Shuri gets called to go join the
Yeah.
Avengers. But yeah, the other factor is like, where are the young Avengers? Where are the and I want to
Bishop.
I want to call this is I could see a scene where Yelena's team meets these characters and they're like, we're the Avengers, the kids, because there's no Avengers,
Yeah.
and they don't believe the government sanctioned team to be the one. And then Yelena goes, young Avengers, maybe you're babies. I could see that little
Go home
nickname
and eat
coming.
macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, and Adam was like, well, what are Sam's Avengers called? If these are the new Avengers, and then I went, well, the Brian Michael Bendis book, Jenna, what is it? What's the title?
Mighty Avengers.
And then,
Zing.
and then I was like, and then who comes up with that? It's fucking
Mighty
Thor.
Thor.
It's Thor, who, as an homage to Jane Foster, Sam's like, we're the Avengers. And then somebody else is on the team is like, well, the government already has the Avengers. And Thor goes, well, we're the mighty Avengers.
It's pretty good Thor.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, we're
Pretty
the
good
mighty.
Thor.
Mighty.
If I closed my eyes, it was like Thor was talking to me.
Because they're gonna meet and they're gonna clash, and then they'll be like, "Wait, Tony Stark's back," and then that's gonna be the whole movie. But that's that's it.
Credits.
Don't even need to see
I don't
it.
think there's a lot of names that weren't that.
Oh, for
that-
sure.
There was
Yeah.
another version of that didn't
Oh, yeah.
come out that day. So I think that, but I still think that even with some of the names that are in the movie that we don't know about yet, I still think they're going to save a lot of the here's everyone
Yeah.
for Secret Wars.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
I
You
hope
mean like the Hugh Jackman and the Tobey Maguires and the
1000%, yeah.
Okay.
Hugh Jackman not being in this one,
Yeah.
with the X-Men that are would be weird.
I feel
Well-
like that's a surprise they're saving. I
Yes.
feel like getting that pop of like, here's the rest of the Fox X-Men, and then like you pan to Hugh being there. I feel like
Yep.
they want to save that, but like he's definitely in both in
That's
some capacity.
that's the Hector Barbosa moment where he comes down the stairs.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of Pirates, where like it will be like Professor X, Cyclops, Mystique, Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
And then somebody's like James Marsden's like, you know who we really need, and it pans over and it's Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And the
Or I
audience
could
pops
see-
and then end credits.
Like the Doomsday could be sort of because we have the Fantastic Four coming into this universe, which
Yeah.
I also, by the way, the whole other conversation we probably should have is maybe it's just Franklin in that ship. We're all expecting all four.
Just Franklin, the
Maybe-
baby, just piloting the.
This is Krypton. all
Yeah,
that.
it's
This is his.
autopilot.
Yeah, this is his.
Oh my god.
yeah.
But we're all expecting the Fantastic Four to get out of that. I mean, the kids are the ones who build the life raft in the Secret Wars comic. So maybe that's like he
Hang on, I was
escapes.
expecting Jenna to drop the comic book knowledge, Brandon. This is throwing me off.
when he knows comics, he makes sure to bring them up because
I repeat the same facts on every show.
Smart. You know, you're like, well, the raft, was a.
Yeah.
It's like Brandon, we're talking
Free
DC
comic
Comics.
book day issue. Come on.
I do think it has to be the team though, because I love the idea, and now that I've like slept on it, of just the FF crash landing on Earth, and the first team they meet is this very like militarized, government sanctioned. They have the corporate sponsors,
so
which I
opposite
loved
there.
the jumpsuit that Red Guardian's wearing, because like in Smallville, when Booster Gold shows up towards the end of the show, he literally is like a NASCAR driver and is like covered with all of these brand
Yep.
logos on his jacket.
Yep.
And I loved that we got a bit of that. But I think like just juxtaposing the FF world and like how bright and hopeful and adventure it is, and then you land and it's immediately like, why is the government and like Wheaties sponsoring the superheroes?
Okay.
I think that'd be great.
Jenna, I'm so glad you brought this up because we need to get into this.
Yes.
This is a perfect segue
We're about to do our podcast in the car again.
Yes.
because Jenna, we've got thoughts about Fantastic Four. Brandon, I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this as well.
I don't think about it.
Okay, great. I know I'm really nervous about the FF just being from another dimension to begin with. For
Victor hates the idea.
For a multitude of reasons. And listen, Augustine, the three of us, we've had conversations about Robert Downey Jr. being Doom. I've never talked to you about this.
We haven't talked.
And I've seen you in person and been like, I want to pick your brain about it. But Jenna put forth a theory of like, story-wise, this could be the reason that the Fantastic Four stay. Or at least the story could be, this is how the Fantastic Four change the world around them for the better. And the fact that you mentioned that the first team they meet has Red Guardian on the team
Yeah.
and how much he sucks, or John Walker and how shitty he is, that makes Reed and Sue and Johnny and Ben go, these guys suck. These are
Yeah.
bad heroes. This world is bad.
Yeah.
We need to like, kind of like Superman, or kind of, it almost reminds me of like, in JLA Avengers, that comic book crossover, when Superman and the Justice League come to the Marvel Universe,
Yeah.
that's literally what Superman says.
Yeah.
He sees the Marvel Universe and he's like, this world sucks. These heroes are ineffective. They have not inspired their people. They are hunted and feared. This is awful. You heroes should be doing better. And Cap's like, well, we give our people freedom. Fuck you, dude. It was great. But Jenna, talk about your sort of your I think maybe your like hopes for what the Fantastic Four franchise is going to be.
I can see it being a thing where like post Secret Wars, we just have their universe and whatever's left of the sacred timeline just like smushed together. And in a perfect world, we would have more of the 60s aesthetic kind of brought in. Because even like the color in the post-credit scene of this movie, I was like, I've missed having this much color in something like this. So I think like having it aesthetically be more of that like quintessential iconic kind of Marvel aesthetic. And then you have the FF, like you said, wanting to stay behind also because they have to, because they can't get back to their old universe. But then they also like meet all these people. They discover over the course of Secret Wars, like we can have partnerships with these people, but we can also stay and like make the world better in the process. I think that would be the way to go.
Do you think it's still possible to Brandon, I want to loop you into this as well, because what we didn't see from the movie Thunderbolts last night was some sort of secret backstory surprise about the Sentry. In the comic books, they introduced the Sentry and they were like, oh, he was actually active in the beginning of the Marvel Universe when the Fantastic Four first debuted, but then he took himself away because of the Void threat, and he like wiped everyone on Earth's memory about it. When I explained this to Adam, who didn't know about that in the comics, Adam goes, well, this wouldn't be the first time that's happened in the MCU. Doctor Strange did the same thing. So the fact that we didn't get that with the Sentry, where they didn't digitally insert him into the background of the first Avengers movie, like the hero, the Sentry, was active, do you think it's possible that the Fantastic Four are from the sacred timeline, but Doctor Doom, being the villain that he is,
Neuralized everyone.
Neuralized everybody. He's just as good of a sorcerer as Doctor Strange. Don't forget. He pulls off that spell. He pops him into a pocket universe or another dimension, and then they're able to find their way back, and eventually their memory is restored, and so they are from the sacred timeline to begin with. Or is that still too convoluted?
I can tell he's winding up for an answer,
I
but
know.
so before he does, I almost don't want that, and I think Brandon's going to say the same thing, because we need to care about other worlds in the multiverse. That has always been a talking point on our show. Outside, there's a reason why the Fox cast is in Doomsday, because it's like that is
Selfish
the
son of
one
a bitch.
other universe that like people already going in have an attachment to. So it's like to be able also to just kind of have this very quintessentially like iconic class 60s Marvel universe and differentiate that from, again, how dire the main sacred timeline kind of has. I think you need that contrast. I think it would suck to then be like, oh, well, they were there all along, and then over the course of the ensuing 50, 60 years, we just made things so much worse. Like, it would break the canon in a way that I think does more harm than good.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I think they.
Hector,
Sorry, dude.
lay into you guys.
I like
Not that
turning
they're
green.
not that they're not again to clarify, not that they're from the 60s of the sacred timeline.
Oh, okay.
But that like if Iron Man, Tony Stark first escaped the cave in the year 2008, my theory is that like maybe Reed Richards and the gang became the Fantastic Four either right before or right after that. Or even better, how about this? Go back to WandaVision when Monica Rambeau was like, I know a guy. What if that's Reed Pedro Pascal? Okay, and he designs the thing to puncture the as we all thought he was.
Hector
We all
really
thought he
wants
was.
it to work.
I'm not the only one. We all thought it. But then
He's
a little,
carving a hole for those characters
Oh,
to
yeah.
break
Oh,
through
yeah.
somewhere.
but a little bit after that, Reed and the gang, they go off.
a chalkboard.
They go,
Yeah.
right.
We have a whiteboard just for Hector.
The Charlie Day meme. But they go and become the Fantastic Four, and then Doctor Doom in Latveria, which is the country in Moon Knight, pops him away.
Barry was in Moon Knight.
Remember when he shows up in an Eastern European country? Mark
Briefly.
Spector just
Yeah.
woke up.
Was that confirmed to be?
No.
Latveria?
No, in Hector's brain it was.
Oh, listen,
It's a
I gotta
reveal,
say,
baby.
I
Was that
love
little
There's the
kid-
Hector Marvel
Was
cinematic.
that little kid in Iron Man 2 Peter Parker? No, until he was.
Okay, I
Sorry, go ahead.
love how you developed this theory.
Yeah.
You're very kind. You're very, very
It
kind.
is not fucking happening.
Tell Hector no.
Oh my god.
You're literally just describing the like sliding time scale in the comics, which is like at any point in the comic you were reading, the Fantastic Four have always been like X amount of years away from their space mission, or
Correct.
this thing has always happened. And like
Correct.
that works to a fault. I think like even to the point about Sentry, I think retconning Sentry in the way that you could have done in the comics would have just like broken too many people's brains. So I think the way they did it of like
would
the
have.
government experiment, like you can
Great.
volunteer, definitely the good way to thread the needle. But yeah.
It worked with the Ancient One, Tilda Swinton, because we knew she was there, and it wasn't Stephen Strange yet, and she was just in the background of the Battle of New York, not in the
50 blocks away.
Yeah.
not interacting with the Avengers. So
I
it was
think
easy.
the other important thing to remember, and we have this conversation all the time, the movies are not necessarily made for comic book fans.
I know.
They're made for movie lovers.
They named the Thunderbolts after a soccer team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comic book fans are going to be pissy. No one else is
No
going
one.
to care.
No one else cares.
I've never read
And that's
anything
most of the
Thunderbolts.
audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, let's not act like the Thunderbolts are a very popular group in comics.
no, it's fine.
Like, they suddenly started becoming popular when Baron Zemo debuted in the MCU, and then people were like, we love the Thunderbolts, and then everyone else in the Echo Chamber engagement forum Twitter is, I love the Thunderbolts too. Everything has to be done that way because you'll like my tweet if I say the same thing that you thought, but we like the comic so much. But there are people who are authentic about it.
Yeah.
But that is a small percentage of the people who go to the movies.
Totally.
Brandon's bringing the heat. Well,
Well, I mean, just from my perspective, like
Yeah.
I didn't grow up reading Marvel comics. I was a DC guy. So once we got past phase 3, I was like, I don't know anything about any of these
Sure.
characters. I don't know Kamala Khan. I don't know very much about Captain Marvel. So I'm going into it as a movie fan now. So I feel like sometimes it is a little hard to differentiate those things and to kind of, you know.
Once they canceled
Listen.
Nova, I
Pay off
stopped
both
reading
audiences.
comics.
Once they canceled
Once
Nova,
they canceled the Nova series, I said, I'm
man.
never reading a comic
they'll bring
again.
it back. They'll bring it back.
Kidding.
But I think you're right. I think it's also because as a comic book reader, we will latch on to certain moments. Thank you.
needs a hug.
Thanks, Sugar. No. I'm okay. This is my therapy right now. This is it.
This is why you're in the
through it.
middle.
Yeah,
Let it
that's why
out.
we put you in the middle.
This is why we're all here. We brought you guys. But like you latch on to certain moments where, as a comic book reader, whether you read all Marvel comics or not, at one point you got wind of the Infinity Gauntlet and you understood and learned that like Thanos snapped and killed half of the universe. Comic book readers always knew that was Thanos' sort of whole deal. So that when he shows up in the movie, I think comic book readers went, I can't believe they're eventually going to get to that. That's the whole point of that character. That's what you use him for. So in my brain, I see other things, concepts in comics, little story moments, things like Bob's backstory, and I go, that's really compelling to me. If they can find a way to translate that, you know, it could be cool. I look at things like with the Fantastic Four, and I'm like, the fact that they're just so set in New York, they're in the Baxter Building, you know, that at one point She-Hulk joins the team when the Thing needs a break.
Yeah.
That characters like Agatha Harkness are like the babysitter of Franklin Richards and Valeria. The fact that, you know, the Thing, Ben Grimm, has a poker game, weekly poker game with the other Marvel heroes. I want that. Or the fact that Namor like flirts with Susan.
Yeah.
We might still get versions of those moments even if the character's from another universe. It doesn't really matter. But like that's the thing I sort of latch onto. And in my brain, I go, that's very important to me for Fantastic Four. It seems like Marvel Studios looked at it and they went, shut up, Hector. This is what's important. A cool 60s aesthetic.
But it looks
Because it is
cool.
cool. It is cool. I'm an idiot. Of course
But
it's
here-
cool.
I was with you from the jump. When I
Sure.
heard even that Fantastic Four was going to be set in the 60s
He
in the
hated
sacred
it.
timeline,
Really?
I was like, well, first of all, that's one thing I don't like about Captain Marvel. That's what I don't like
it's in
about
the
the
90s?
Eternals. That it's retconning this history and adding a bunch of shit that was not part of the story, and it undercuts everything we saw from 2008 on, in my opinion.
Okay.
If you go back and say there were already superheroes, Iron Man wasn't special, Captain America was barely special.
Well, it's the same problem with like the first Wonder Woman movie having to deal with like the Wonder Woman, the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman does not come out publicly until the events of Batman versus Superman. And then the first Wonder Woman movie was like, what would be the reason for that? And
Yeah.
the best they could come up with was like she was heartbroken. The boy made her sad, so she stayed. Not when
Why
Wonder
did the
Woman fans
Eternals
are like,
not interfere with Thanos?
Exactly.
It literally
I
went
know.
against their entire
I
mission
know.
in the biggest possible way.
I hear you. So you have to like find a
Piss
way
me
to
off.
excuse that.
This is my
I
favorite episode of the
I will
podcast.
say to your point though of like what you want to see from the Fantastic Four
Yeah.
versus what they're giving you so far. I think in order to get everything that you are wanting, you
Yeah.
need them to already be established and have this history, which is what we're clearly getting. They have been superheroes for 4 years, like they've confirmed that now. Because the prequel comic that's going to come out before the movie is going to confirm that. And so they're going to be established enough and not just like coming into their own in the sacred timeline, because then again it becomes the problem of like, well, Reed Richards was alive during, you know, Thanos attacking or the Battle of New York. Why
Sure.
didn't he help? Then you can get around that and
Sure.
just be like, I'm looking at Brandon because he said this
No, I'm
exact
saying
thing.
that's what
when-
Reed Richards
he's
would
like,
do. He's
yeah,
sitting
I'm
there
not
like,
ignoring it.
My other excuse for that was like, why wouldn't the Fantastic Four? First of all, the X-Men never being around in the sacred timeline. Just real quick, I'm totally okay with that because mutants are so far and few between, and they're hunted and feared. I have no problem with like when fans are like, well,
underground.
why didn't
Yeah.
Wolverine go join in the Battle of New York? I'm like, dude is in Canada,
Yeah.
and they're racist against mutants. Like that's
but like, still,
fine.
that was never expressed in the MCU.
Sure.
In
You're
the
saying
sacred
versus
timeline.
other things,
Like
but
if you did that, there's a way to get away with it. But
Yeah.
I get you.
as long as he didn't do something that was
World
like
changing.
literally saving the
exactly.
planet
Yeah.
before.
And X-Men characters, you can get away with that. They don't
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that. They don't shift
Yeah,
it
yeah.
cosmically.
Hidden, they're kind of roaming around. Yeah.
Until
Yeah.
later. But my quick little theory about Fantastic Four was I was like, it has to be post Thanos. And I remember in Endgame when Rocket was like, this is the biggest surge of cosmic energy we've ever seen. I was like, cosmic, that's it. That's how it happened. But no, they didn't do that. Sorry.
I have a question for you two because
Okay.
you two know all this about the comics. If the staple of Thanos from comics was that he
Yes.
does the snap and
Yes.
wipes half of existence away,
Yes.
what is the equivalent for Doom in your opinion?
It's not being Robert Downey Jr. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you that damn much right now. I'll tell you that much right now. It's not looking like Tony Stark.
That is a complex question because
Yeah.
I feel like you can answer it in a million different ways. Because in a way, it's like it's his relationship with Reed Richards. Of
Yes.
like it's very Batman and Joker in a sense of like they can't fully get rid of each other. Like they need each other to keep driving themselves. But it's also just this like quest for power, this quest for belonging, all these sort of things. I don't know. It's like he, even compared to Thanos, has so many more moments and so many more facets to him that he's like capable of stuff like that. So.
I think if you're trying to find it, one of his end games really could be what does happen in Secret Wars,
Yes.
where he becomes God Emperor Doom.
Yes, yeah.
One of his other end games could be like him defeating Richards, and then Reed Richards in certain comics. I think, Augustine, you've read some of those, like Mark Waid early 2000s books, where like Doom does that sacrifice with human skin leather armor to, like, not only does he sort of one-up Reed Richards at a science level, but then also Stephen Strange. Doom's endgame could also be rescuing his mother's soul from hell.
Yeah.
Forget about that.
Yeah.
Which is trapped with Mephisto.
So badass. So it could be like, confirmed. But we got to get into it. But Augustine, I want to mention how, like, we talked about you in the car because you had said the FF being from their own universe could also factor into how they eventually retire those characters.
Yeah,
how they
absolutely.
exit them, the way Steve Rogers and Tony Stark have been exited in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important at this point to, when you have actors like Pedro and like these big name actors, they're not going to be around forever. Like, you have to really consider that in the livelihood.
breaking Jenna's heart. You're
I
breaking
know.
my heart.
Well, I'm not. And here's the thing. I love Pedro, right? Like, I absolutely love him. But is he really going to have that Robert Downey Jr.
Until he's 90.
Until he's 90? Does everybody want to do that? Not everybody wants to do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's not playing Joe Miller anymore.
That is true.
Spoiler
Need a
alert.
job.
I do think, because like we talked about this in the car, I think like in order to have the FF be a little bit more like seasoned, for lack of a better term, like they haven't, they're not fresh, they're not starting out like the Josh Trank movie, like they've been superheroes, they've been people in the world a little bit. I get why they cast the actors as old as they did, but I do think there's a way to still have them get like a trilogy of movies and all of these
Absolutely.
appearances and stuff like that. I think like, they're leaving the door open for like, eventually down the way, there's plenty of ways for you to retire, but I think we're so far away from
There's
that.
no way they didn't lock them into like 7 movies.
Exactly.
There's
And
Yeah, potentially.
when
Yeah.
the Thing design looks that good in CG,
Yeah.
they're going to Mark Ruffalo and keep him around for as long, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're not retiring that character because it's like, it's just CG. It's
Yeah.
motion capture, and it's relatively easy to.
But I have to imagine that part of the conversation with the contracts with the actors has to be that. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
we're
right.
gonna do.
Yeah.
If we do the 7-movie deal, you're gonna be in your 60s by the time the last one's
Yeah.
done. Like, what is
Yeah.
gonna happen here? So
Yeah.
the reality of looking at that, but also like trying to give us everything we want out of the Fantastic Four, that's huge. That's like a really big task to kind of fulfill. And so balancing that, to me, I think has to be part of the conversation of like, okay, Pedro, you're busy, probably the busiest actor in Hollywood right now. How are you going to fit these 7 movies in your schedule? Because you could just do those movies for the rest of your life and be good to go. But he wants to do other projects.
He's got 5 things coming out this year.
One might say he's stretched thin.
No.
Hey. You know what stretched even more thin? Hector's theories about how we're going to.
Yeah, I mean, what a rope-a-dope he was doing in his career. I respect it. I love how this was a Thunderbolts.
I know.
I was
now
thinking
we've
the same
pivoted.
This is
thing.
Fantastic Four analysis brought to you
Yeah.
by Thunderbolts.
But I will say, and like tying it back to Thunderbolts, I think like they've reached a balance with a lot of the actors in the MCU of like they still get to go do those other projects. Like
Right,
Sebastian
yeah.
Stan was
Yeah.
like in the Oscar race last
Yes,
season for like multiple movies, like, and he's still around playing Bucky as a role he's played for almost 20 years at this point. So I think like.
Terrific actor. He's done a lot
Don't
of
do
work.
it. Don't do it.
A lot of great roles.
We already banned it on our show. Don't bring it over to another show.
Well, it's not banned on this show. Not
You
yet.
finally let it out. Sebastian Stan.
I wouldn't have named them that. I would have named them something else.
The new Avengers. I think Valentina is terrific.
Oh, we've opened the floodgates.
Because even with like Florence Pugh has talked about how in the like indie film Twitter community, like people have kind of like given her crap for being in these movies, and she's like, but she's still able to balance doing the things that she wants to do and doing these tentpoles. I also think like the production schedule, and once we get to the X-Men and you have 100 other actors at your disposal, I think like the Fantastic Four like production schedule, they're still going to be able to go do everything they want to do in the meantime.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts really are absolutely movies that we desperately needed in the MCU before
Yes.
Doomsday.
Totally.
Yes.
Thunderbolts
Totally.
more than I expected.
Yes.
But
Totally.
I remember that at Comic-Con this was announced as the Phase 5 closer.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this, imagine if
That's right, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
if the MCU would have post Endgame started with WandaVision, the 2 seasons of Loki, Spider-Man, Deadpool and Wolverine, and this. And I love Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi's probably my favorite project. Maybe Deadpool, just because it's so much fun. throw in any of the new debuts, pick any one, and then those 5 movies. And I think that the conversation of the MCU going into 2023 is completely different.
I agree.
Yeah.
This is
People would have liked Eternals more.
Yeah.
If Eternals was sandwiched in between everything you just described.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, that retconning of history and still would have pissed me off. But I agree with you. I do think that's the case because it was one of 8 projects or 9 projects in 2021.
Yeah.
10.
Was it 10?
Yeah.
Yeah,
TV
it was
shows and
10.
movies.
Yeah.
It was like 7 shows or 6 shows and 4 movies,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a
A
lot.
lot. It was a lot. A little too much.
Well, I just want to grab Brandon's thoughts on RDJ Doom, and then I do want to talk to these guys about DC stuff. I want to talk to Jenna about Superman. But Brandon, we've never talked about it. You just share your thoughts. Like you asked sort of what Doom's end game was. On the show, Augustine is a #1 Doom fan. We were there at Comic-Con at that announcement. I know that you guys were, and it was like weird mixed feelings because I think for us, the main thing is like any cool shit they do with Robert Downey Jr. as Doom, and I'm sure it will be cool and emotional and everything. I feel like it's just less that a later on version of Doctor Doom, who's not Tony Stark, a variant or something, doesn't get to do. Does that make sense?
Well, it does.
Okay. I rest my case. No, it doesn't make sense. No, you're like, who cares? Producer Alex doesn't care. But I'm sorry. But how are you feeling about it? I mean,
let's get your
what's your frame of mind going into this?
Comic-Con was like full WWE.
Yeah.
That was like Hulk Hogan turning heel, John Cena turning heel. It was a stunt when they're like, here's the guy you love, he's bad now.
When you can't deliver a certain thing in wrestling, you have to deliver something bigger. That's the move.
Basically, and that's just 101. So that felt like, Hulk ripping the Hulkamania shirt off and NWO's under there. He's not the good guy anymore. Now he's Doctor Doom. But to me, I mean, listen, it's going to be straying from the comics considerably.
Yep.
Because they've said it is obviously a factor in the movie that he is tied to
Robert Downey
Tony
Jr.
Stark in
Right.
some way.
Yes.
I'm not a comics purist when it comes to the movies.
No.
I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I don't really care that we didn't get Uncle Ben in the MCU and that Tony Stark kind of filled that void because what they did worked for me.
And Aunt May said the line.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Yes.
So those things, they find these ways to remix them and I'm okay with it. To me, it's too soon to tell whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
I just think you can't tell what the
What it
Russos
is.
might
What
be
it is.
cooking.
Yeah.
Marcus, it's not Marcus McFeely. It's
McFeely?
just
It's just
McFeely
just
this time.
McFeely.
Listen, it's sort of like how Hugh Jackman is Wolverine and they put him in the yellow suit. How cool. Does it not mean that Marvel Studios is going to do their own casting of Logan and a future version of Wolverine after Secret Wars? Of course they will.
They will.
And there's going to be endless stories you can do with that. And so, but it's still fun to have Hugh in the suit and have fun with him now while we have him.
Dude, I just imagine Peter Parker
Yeah.
seeing this guy and being like, Mr. Stark. And he's like, what did you say to me?
Yeah.
Like who? Well, I assume that he'll know who he's referencing because he's going to be smart.
Yeah.
But to me, it's too like
Yeah.
I understand why people are frustrated, especially people who are diehard comics fans. And the Secret Wars comic is fantastic. And imagining that Doom being a Tony Stark variant is weird.
Yes.
I agree. It's strange, but I don't know what they're doing yet. So it's that what they do is going to make or break the casting entirely.
Yeah.
If it's just a stunt, that's going to suck.
Yeah.
I love Downey and I love Iron Man. I was thrilled to see him on the stage, and I was like, "How's this going to work?"
Yep.
But I don't know. So to me, it's like I'm cool with finding out.
Great.
But I think it does, to your point, possibly cheapen Doom down the line. And my biggest fear on it is that we're probably not going to get a lot of him, if we get any of him, in Fantastic Four First Steps. And without a setup for Doom going into Doomsday and Secret Wars, that makes
But
me
listen,
fear.
but Thanos had no setup effectively before Infinity War, and then that was his movie.
Yeah, but
And it
Thanos
worked.
wasn't a big change, so we were
Okay.
able to tell the story for them, like online.
Got
We
it.
were able
Yeah.
to sit there and
We know
tell
what the
people.
end game is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime people were like regular movie going audiences are like, all this dude does is sit in a chair. We were like, he's gonna kill half of the universe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just wait, sit tight.
To my point that I made earlier, that's still fair. I don't want to give us too much credit. I know a lot of people watch you guys, they watch us, but the collective between people who listen to us nerds on the internet
Yeah.
is massive. But it's still the majority of people who go to the internet or go to the movies
Yeah.
Don't know.
don't know what we're talking about. They don't know what happened in the books. So
Did you guys have this last night for Thunderbolts? In the post-credit scene, the ship comes out. Some people applauded and clapped. It wasn't until the ship turned and we saw the 4 logo that everyone freaked out. I was like, guys,
how did you miss that? In the credits, it says Fantastic Four theme by Michael Giacchino. And I turned to Hector and I go, that wasn't been in the movie yet.
See, I was an outlier because I saw the ship and I knew the design of the ship because I've been hyped about this movie before it even pivoted and showed the 4. I fully my hands up in the air. I was screaming. It was like that. Yeah. I will also say with the Doom conversation, we do need to specify, as much as we keep saying Tony Stark variant, they have said he's Victor Von Doom.
Yes,
that was the announcement.
Correct.
So it's we do need to take that into account, even if he looks like Tony Stark. I do think the way that I've made peace with it is I think there's an interesting narrative to be told about the face of your franchise turning around and becoming the greatest villain. I think there's something in that is really compelling. I don't know how in depth the movie can get into that,
it's
but I
the
think
state of the MCU right now kind of a thing.
It's almost a little just kind of self-aware in a way that I think could be really cool and could be really interesting.
Everybody's
And again,
turned on it.
given the long road it took to get to this movie, I think that is an interesting take as opposed to just Cillian Murphy or Mads Mikkelsen or whatever. It adds this extra nuance to it.
They tried to give us the interesting Eternals and Brandon hates it. So okay, well now we're the bad guys now.
Oh,
here
please,
you go.
that movie's not good. It's just
I was not expecting this much.
it's just
I'll go to
fine at
bat for
best.
it. I'll
It's
go to
just
bat for it.
fine at best. It's not bad. It's just not good. And I don't like what it does to the MCU history.
Okay, that's
But
fair.
I forgot I had a point I was going to say about
Sorry, I just liked diverting you with
there was
Eternals.
something about Doom.
Just poking the bear there.
I had something about Doom, but
You'll remember it.
We're
Go ahead.
overlooking the whole anchor being thing too.
Right. That's a
Yeah.
I
huge
keep
thing.
bringing that up too.
Yeah.
That's something, and that's the sort of thing that in the Infinity Saga would have been a huge story point that
Yes.
came back later. And
Yes.
the multiverse saga has been so disjointed that I'm like, you guys just introduced a really interesting concept that you could use
Towards the
as
end.
part of Secret Wars, as an integral part of that story for the movie version of it. But I don't even trust at this point that that's necessarily going to be woven in. I hope it is because they've had time. They're still finishing scripts on Doomsday.
Yeah.
Or the concept in What If, the Doctor Strange episode where what was it called? It was like a something event where he could not undo it. Or I guess in the
Nexus.
Spider-Verse, a Nexus
Spider-Verse,
event.
the canon event.
But
canon
canon
event.
event in the Spider-Verse films,
Yeah.
it's sort of separate but related. And it's
Yeah.
is any of that stuff going to factor in?
Did you
I don't
notice
know.
that one of the media teams at the end was called Global Nexus Broadcasting at Thunderbolts?
Oh, and the little press
Yeah.
junket?
Nexus reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of Thunderbolts.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Good. Well, I think that was
We got into it.
we
I'm
got
sorry.
into
I'm
it.
so sorry.
I do want to bring up something about Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Oh, that's what. Are we talking about Thunderbolts?
yeah. That movie. I don't know if
Technically.
we talked about it with you or maybe I don't remember who we were talking. But for me, for the first time in a long time, it felt like they made a movie.
Yeah.
Something that can really stand on its own. That really is about the characters and that is really heavily focused on the emotion, the relationships between the characters. And I just found that to be incredibly refreshing. So I feel like a lot of the stuff that's kind of come before, and there's outliers throughout, obviously. I feel like a lot of it's just been building blocks or these very disparate things that don't feel like they lead to anything. And I like being in a movie where I could watch beginning, middle to end. I got a full service story. I know where the characters start. I know where they end up. And I can kind of really sympathize and empathize with them. And I really love that about the film so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
We will. It's exciting to know. We want to, and we will see them all again.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are never going to see Angelina Jolie in the MCU again,
Probably not. Yeah.
or Harry Styles, and maybe Charlize
absolutely.
Theron.
Right.
Not if I have
Brett
anything to say
Goldstein,
about it.
laundry list of characters.
Well, here's
Yeah.
now what I'm thinking. If the trick is just to take a team concept from Marvel Comics, but then bring in all these actors that we haven't seen in years, then now just do West Coast Avengers with Hercules and with Athena and with all these characters that we haven't seen from stuff and be like, that's probably going to be a great
Why don't you
dynamic.
just call them the post-credit Avengers?
Post-credit Avengers.
I was going to say revisit that after Wonder Man comes
What are we
out.
doing?
because
I
feel
want to.
Yeah.
Wonder Man might be setting up the West Coast
that's my
Avengers.
hope.
What does Tony Stark call them in the Avengers? He's like, we're not the pre-Vengers. What is the opposite of that?
The Avengers.
yeah.
Right?
We're the Avengers, not the pre-Vengers.
Pre-Vengers, yeah.
What would the opposite of pre-Vengers be? The after the? I guess that's
Isn't it
just
the
Avengers.
Revengers?
I don't know.
That's the whole bit from
I thought I had
Thor.
an
Yeah.
idea there, but
You got it.
I'm tired.
You're tired. It's okay. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about DC stuff. Jenna, you're a massive Superman fan. Adam's the #1 Superman guy. And Brandon, you're a big DC guy, right? Or would you
I
say
mean,
you're
I'm
more
definitely more Marvel.
More
but
Marvel?
That's
Okay.
mostly because I talk about movies.
right?
Like,
and
and
they've had crushing it.
Yeah,
for
but
the
I
past
mean, I do love
decade.
DC. I do love DC.
Jenna, what are your? Adam, do you have any questions for Jenna about Upcoming James Gunn Superman.
That's so hard to ask these questions because we had, again, a 1 hour podcast in the car.
Yeah.
I know we really did. We really
Well,
did.
I mean, I guess the big one for being a DC fan, what are your hopes for the future, even Superman and even beyond that?
Yeah, for both of you
Do
guys.
you mean in canon or just for what the universe accomplishes?
Both.
Because I feel like in canon, I'm very flexible with whatever they end up doing. I think we have the ability to do such a blank slate while still having Peacemaker and all of these characters that they can bring over. Like there's still remnants of the old universe, but I think like there are so many different directions that they can take, like the Endgame style event of what they would build to. But even then, just like the way that they've been able to be flexible with when they said like, hey, we're kind of pulling back on developing the Authority movie because we don't want to introduce an entire team of characters because we already have so many characters in all of our projects that we already want to see interact. The fact that they're able to kind of just like adjust and recognize like how to build the universe outward is something that I've always just wanted to see.
Huge.
And I think like we talked about this a little bit in the car, but like what I want just out of the universe at the end of the day is for like the next generation of kids and like even the older generations like to be reawoken with their love of these characters, because like as passionately as we just talked about Marvel, it's like that DC has so much that deserves that level of conversation and like has not been able to have it.
Yeah.
I went on the lot to watch the original Superman movie. And there's a lot of flaws in that movie for sure, because they made it, it's a miracle that movie even got made.
Yeah.
But I'm watching, I'm like, it's the feeling that I get watching that movie and how
Yes.
Superman makes me feel in that film that I feel like I've been missing. And for years after Man of Steel, I thought like, maybe I'm just too in love with those movies. But then we watch things like Superman and Lois, My Adventures with Superman, all the stuff that's
there.
coming out now. I'm like, all
there.
of that emotion is there,
Yeah.
and it's been missing. And I agree. I want to be able to take my cousins who are, 10 and 14, and I want them to enjoy it and not be like, never mind, you can't watch this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you are taking something away from the audience. And yes, you can do multiverse or these, like, what do they call them? The
Elseworlds.
Elseworld stories.
And
of course you can do those.
And you could even do sets still within the same franchise and continuity. You can do a rated R Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
DC characters. Clayface.
Absolutely,
Clayface,
yeah.
Can be gnarly.
And if
yeah.
you want to do an interesting take on Superman that's different, like, let's build towards that. Give us the time to fall in love with those characters.
Brandon, same questions for you. Is what would you like to see happen within the DC movies? And then, like Jenna answered, what would you like to see like the response be from our real world, the outside world?
No, I want to preface this. I love Man of Steel.
Great.
Like I'm a person who loves Man of
There's a
Steel.
lot of
I
elements
love
of Man
the
of Steel I
Ultimate
really
Edition,
like.
and I also loved Zack Snyder's Justice League. That said, I don't think that they're great representations of these characters from comics in a lot of instances. And to me, like I said earlier with Marvel, I'm okay with that. Some ways I think Zack nails a couple of the comic elements, but he also then does the Zack Snyder thing, which I'm a fan of a lot of Zack's work. But now that James is doing it, Superman looks like it's a comic book on screen more than anything we've seen like since Batman in like the 80s.
Yeah.
Like this feels like it's campy comic book on screen, and I'm excited to live in that world. And I want it to unify like the franchise in a way that wasn't happening, which is Marvel's not doing now, which DC didn't do under Zack and the many teams at Warner Brothers that were all trying to have their hands in the pot. I want to see it all come together in a way that allows filmmakers to tell stories the way they want to, and I think that's what they're doing, and it allows people to fall in love with characters that are all being told the way that they could. And change the comics or not, it seems like they're following the comics, and that's exciting. I just want to see the brand be managed well, and it seems like having Peter there, that's what they're getting to, because like I want to go to Six Flags and have a new DC ride.
Yep.
Thank you.
We've been.
Oh my
I want to go on Fortnite and have new skins.
Yep.
Like there's
Yeah.
been such mismanagement of the DC brand
Yeah.
from the business side of it
Totally.
that James, I believe James is going to do a great job with these characters because he doesn't really miss with characters. He makes you fall in love with trees.
Yeah, I don't want to see Warner Brothers characters, DC characters licensed to other theme parks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give them
Yeah.
their
Like,
own.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see Hot Toys figures. When's the last time we got a full run of like
Yeah.
McFarlane's already dropping great DC Comics collectibles from the movies.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see the brand finally be put together in a cohesive way that seems like they're finally capitalizing on it, because that IP should be like household all the time.
Yeah.
With
And
more characters too.
totally.
Yes.
And to the
Yeah.
point where I love seeing James Gunn and Jim Lee sit and talk to
Yeah.
each other.
Yes. Yeah.
I
That's
want
also
that
part of it
cohesion.
too, is that they are really putting the comics first and foremost. And like to your point about
The end of the
changing stuff,
trailers, yeah.
what they're changing in the adaptation, they're not saying that that's like better or worse than what's in the comic. They're just treating it as like two separate texts, and they're like driving people towards the. Well, and they're driving people towards the comics of like
Yes.
if like
Yes.
James Gunn's Superman movie, based on what we already know about it, there is no direct comic analog of it. It is just very much a blender of all of these different elements like put together for a new story. And so then that in the process, people are then going to go out of that movie and they're going to be driven to so many different comics from so many different eras because they're all reminiscent. I think that is the way to approach it.
Yeah, the thing that we always talk about is like when people go to the theater to see Superman, there should be a standee that has All-Star Superman, like every comic that inspired the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
So people can go, oh, great, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to read it. Like, that's how
Superman,
you
Woman
get
of
people in.
Tomorrow,
Yeah.
that should be sold in movie
And
theaters.
All-Star Superman has some heavy stuff in it.
It does.
So,
does.
and I don't think James Gunn's going to shy away from that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good point. I know we want to see Blue Beetle return. We
Yes.
love Sholo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
yes.
coming back in an
as
animated
Jaime.
series.
I just
Yes.
want to see his
Great.
grandma back on screen.
Delightful.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
She needs her own spin-off.
I want to
Seriously.
see. I'm really stoked about Momoa as Lobo,
Mm-hmm.
but I really want to see the continuation of one thing I really liked about the casting of Momoa as Aquaman is to make him a Polynesian superhero, Pacific Islander guy.
Mm-hmm.
Made me go, oh, when now Aquaman talks about like I'm a being of two worlds, it added more depth.
Yeah.
I think if they revert and go with the blonde, blue-eyed Aquaman,
Yeah.
and he's like I'm a being of two worlds, I'll be like, you're fine. You don't struggle the way the other heroes are struggling. So I hope that James Gunn, can kind of keep that going and keep his movies as diverse as the rest of his movies have been. Even if he's, we went from kind of a Latina multiversal Supergirl to sort of the classic Supergirl, who that actress is great because we watched Game of Thrones last year or the year before,
of
whatever
Dragon,
it was, House of the Dragon. She's going to crush it. But yeah, a lot of thoughts for DC. Last question, Jenna, if you have to recommend one title in the DC Absolute line, is it Martian Manhunter?
yeah.
It's Martian Manhunter.
The
There's
physical copies.
Yeah. So there's 2 issues out so far. The first issue, like you need to physically go pick up a copy of it. There's a thing that is done within it that like requires having a physical copy. I read it digitally the first time and I was like, cannot wait to pick this up. Literally the week of my wedding, I was like, we need to go to the comic book store so I can get this
Is
copy.
there a way to describe this without?
It requires holding the book up to a light source, and
Awesome.
then the way that the image is printed reflects on the panel that you have open, and it looks so cool.
It's like a secret.
Innovative
it's like a secret
comics.
message.
Let's do it.
I
Which
love that.
Dennis Camp, who's writing that book, also is writing the Ultimates over at Marvel, and he's writing Assorted
And
Crisis
Ultimates
events over at
rips,
Image.
dude. That
He-
comic book kicks ass.
He is doing so many new inventive things in a way. Like people are going to look back at him 10 years from now the way that we
Yeah.
look at like, Jonathan Hickman and all of these like amazing
that
creators.
Doctor Doom issue in Ultimates,
The Fantastic Four one.
the Fantastic Four.
I still
4
cry every
panels.
time I think about it. It is incredible.
It's a comic book you read one way, and then
Yes.
when I was done, I was like, hang on a minute. And I went
Go
back,
back.
and read it
Yes.
another way.
Yeah.
And it kind of messes with time the way that you as the reader create the time and the
Yes.
timing of a comic book.
Yeah.
So I love the shit where you have to utilize the medium.
Yes.
What can comics do that
Yes.
movies and video games and TV shows can't?
Yeah.
So lean into that.
Well, and I will say with Martian Manhunter, like you don't have to know who Martian Manhunter is. You don't have to know anything about the lore. But if you do know the lore, there's like Easter eggs and teases and stuff that like enhance the experience. But it uses the medium of comics in a way like none of it is adaptable. Like even an animated series with
Yeah.
like the version of Martian Manhunter would not capture the energy of like you can choose how you read the voice in your head. You can choose how you like view certain things in the comic, and like it is so intrinsically a comic.
About to go buy it right now.
Dude.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah!
right.
Hell yeah! It's so
What's
good.
the most emotional you've ever? What comic made you the most emotional that you
Man.
remember?
Oh my God. There was it's a cliche, but the kid who collects Spider-Man can make me cry if I think about it right now to this day, which is a classic story from the 80s. There's other moments like that throughout. There's an issue of Marvels that makes me emotional. The Alex Ross painted Kurt Busiek, I think was the writer.
Yep.
Where it's about the main characters and their family just like harboring a little mutant girl. She doesn't have powers, and she's like 4 or 5 years old, even younger, and she just looks weird. And she's a mutant girl. And at the end of the book, she runs away, and you don't know what happens to her. And you're like, what the fuck? It is a wallop. It's so good. But my headcanon is that the cover of the book is Angel wearing Worthington III, holding that little girl, lifting her from a mob, an angry mob, saying like, Like,
Whoa.
sorry.
Just like that.
Whoa, whoa,
Just
whoa.
like that.
Breaking the furniture.
Kill that little girl, kill the mutants, and Angel is rescuing her. And I think at one point in Marvel Comics, they actually did revisit that character and sort of told us what happened. But just the idea of like you never know what happens to that little girl. Speaking of Thunderbolts, when that little white girl disappeared, we were like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
the
Yeah.
fuck?
Oh, my
This
God.
is crazy.
Jamie
You're going to be fine.
Jamie audibly laughed. It was hilarious.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Because I was like, damn, they're dead. But then as soon as Yelena walked into the void, I'm like, I think we're going to be
They'll be
okay.
all right. They'll
I
be
think
all
we'll be all
right.
right.
There's a scene in the new Fantastic Four trailer where the little girl, because she's on one of the posters too, and she's like
Yeah.
bending down to pick up her
Yeah.
the thing action figure. And I said to my husband, I was like, what if Galactus steps on her? And he was like, that's way too dark. There's no way they're gonna do
Yeah.
that. Now after Thunderbolts, I'm like, I don't know.
it.
She might step on her. And it's
But
gonna
then,
suck.
Reed Richards will get his Infinity Gauntlet from that universe and undo and
Oh, here we
time
go.
stone and
Here we
save
go
her.
again.
Hour
Sure.
2. Here we go. Hour 2.
Oh my God!
Is this-
Great question though, Brandon, about the emotionality of a comic. You're
Yeah.
doing stuff right now with comics. You're like you're doing Whatnot and you're doing giveaways.
Yeah,
You're doing
oh, yeah, we're doing
bundles. What is that stuff?
Yeah, I do these partnerships with Whatnot where they do these they're like trading cards, but they're full size. It's like a pack of trading cards, but it has 3 comics inside instead
Yeah.
of trading cards.
Nice.
And they're varying levels of rarity. So we auction them off and then open it on the stream after somebody buys it, and you see what you got. And then I ship them. I have a stack of them in my hotel room right now. I just
God.
printed the shipping labels before I came here.
Nice,
Got to go back and then take them to UPS.
My God!
Yeah, but it's pretty. Those are pretty cool.
and
Yeah.
some of them could be signed by Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, so they have like these key issues, and I don't remember off the top of my head which issues they are, but like it's Daredevil 38, which I think is the first appearance of Muse.
Okay.
They have like first appearance of Mayor Fisk, which might be 38, but the like Daredevil versus Punisher fight, and so I think that these issues that I did the auction for are like limited time only. You can only get them from Whatnot, with like these variants of them.
Sure, these covers.
You can always go find the comics. The Daredevil #1 is one of them, and then they have like somebody pulled like they have the third issue is always like a foil cover, and there's varying levels of rarity on the foil. So it's silver, gold, prism, and then you might get like a hand-drawn sketch. The first time I did it, I got a hand-drawn sketch of Captain America Sam Wilson that somebody pulled, which had to be like a $2,000 book. I don't know off the top of my head, but I hand-delivered it to the guy because I found out he lived in Nashville.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to put this in the mail, brother.
Yeah,
Let me
too
give this to you.
No.
And then just now I've pulled like a Phil Noto gold
man.
foil Kingpin book.
Oh.
And somebody bought that for like $140 on the stream. And it's worth like, that's
So
the
much
thing. It's
more.
kind of like you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
So you get a good
Cool.
thing.
That
Yeah.
gamble. It's that gamble.
Phil
yeah.
Noto did the cover for Fantastic Four First Steps, the comic
Yes,
that's coming
he
out.
did, yeah.
Which is
Not written by Matt
But
Fraction.
isn't that like canon?
No.
Dude, so like, are they doing like a canon fantasy?
Yeah, the canon one. Yeah. He did
It's
the
like
cover for
it's
it.
the origin of the Fantastic Four because you got
Yes.
the Mole Man monster coming out of the thing, and coming out of the ground, not coming out of the thing. The thing is there.
yeah.
Coming out. What
Different comic book.
kind
Yeah.
of movie is this?
Oh,
See, I don't like the changes they made. See, it's weird. No,
Who's Paul? We know who Paul Walter Hauser's playing yet?
no, I don't know. Do you know?
It has to be Mole Man.
You think? And then you think Malkovich is Red Ghost?
Yes.
Because Malkovich would have also made Malkovich maybe Puppet Master, and then is that how Alicia Masters is being
I'm
looked into?
torn on that.
I know who.
Okay, you know? Oh, okay.
I know who John Malkovich is playing.
Oh, okay, you do?
Oh.
Can you say or no?
No.
No, we can't.
I don't know.
We'll get it out of you in the car when I
No,
drop you off.
yeah.
Okay, great.
See,
We'll interrogate you after.
I don't want Puppet Master because I want Alicia to be saved for the main universe because to the point we were making earlier of like the Fantastic Four.
See what I mean? See what I mean?
No,
Why even do it?
Because
Why even do it?
Because in a hypothetical scenario where they lose their universe and they have to go over to the sacred timeline and then 'cause,
That's
like,
how we keep Ben.
well, because we've seen that they're beloved as heroes in their universe, and then you go
Yeah.
to the sacred timeline where again everything kind of stinks, and
Yeah.
then they
But then he meets Alicia.
Then he meets Alicia, who loves him for who he is.
People
like
throwing rocks and
whereas,
stuff at
like,
the thing.
if she's just another casualty when their universe dies, that's gonna suck. So I'm like, I would rather just save her for the sequel.
And then Reed's like, Ben, I found a way. I can't cure you, but I found a way for us to return to our home. And Ben's like,
Can't do it.
I'm not going back, Stretch. I got a wife. I'm staying here. That'd be great. But then why even do it to begin with? Okay.
The actor's not gonna let it go.
Guys, any other final questions for our guests? This was awesome. Anything
No,
else
but you
while
guys
we're
should
here?
definitely come back next time you're in LA again.
Plug
Totally.
your channels, plug your stuff. Where are you guys from?
Yeah, when's your next
Let
wrestling
everybody
match?
know.
When's your next wrestling match?
Next wrestling match is on Thursday in Louisville. I'm working every Thursday.
Slow
with
down.
He can't.
I fly home over. I don't know when this releases, but
Monday.
I fly home overnight tonight. I'm home for like Wednesday, and then Thursday morning I leave for Louisville. Spend the day. I wrestle in Louisville. I come home, but then after that,
You're good.
You're good for a while.
Nothing booked in May.
Thank
yet.
All right.
Nothing
all right.
booked. I'm
Thank
hoping
God.
to get that Mission Impossible slot in mid-May. We'll see. Hey, Paramount, if you're watching.
No, it's too risky.
I used to be an employee.
He's sleep deprived. Don't let him do that junket.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is going to hang you from a plane upside down, and you'll
It'll
fall
wake
asleep.
me up.
Yeah, that'll wake him up.
But no, yeah, every Thursday OVW. That's like my favorite thing I do.
That's awesome,
I
man.
love wrestling. If you're in Kentucky or in the area, please come out to Louisville and watch a match. Everybody there is so damn talented. It's like an awesome way to learn from these guys, and I hope you have a good time. And also, you can find us on Phase Hero, any major podcast platform. We're trying to keep up with these guys and the awesome work they're doing on Heroes Reforged.
Face Hero on YouTube is on your YouTube channel.
Yes.
It
Is
is.
it just Brandon Davis?
It's almost like in Thunderbolts, how no. You see, at the end of Thunderbolts,
Yeah.
it's Avengers with a Z.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is change one letter,
Yeah.
and it's a whole different thing.
Phase Hero.
So
we got it.
Phase Hero.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it lives on my channel. It's
Yep.
at Brandon Davis BD, and it's on all major podcast platforms as Phase Hero. And we have social channels, but it's the podcast is the primary thing. And yeah, so
And then Jenna's YouTube channel is it?
It's at Go Read Some Comics,
Go
and
Read
I do video essays. I do interviews with creators, just kind of like whatever. I like already was cooking a Thunderbolts video essay as I was watching the screening last night, so
Okay,
I'm
okay.
excited to go home
Yeah.
and do
her
that.
stuff is so good.
It's awesome, dude.
I watched
great.
it. And I'm like,
It's great. I think it seriously, it perfectly captures the sort of like when I know a little bit about comics, know a little bit about movies, and then I see a discourse happening online that I'm like, I don't like this conversation. Jen will come out with a video and I'll be like, I feel so much better because she nailed exactly kind of what's happening from every angle.
the ability
And,
to
yeah.
articulate it all.
Yes.
And I come in hot like John Walker, just pissed
Yeah.
seeing a movie, and
Yeah.
she's just like, "Okay, kids, sit down."
Here's where this is
Take them
coming
to
from.
class.
Let's talk to you about why you're wrong.
Here's why Robert Pattinson can't be the DCU Batman, and this is why it's okay.
Oh, yes, he can.
No.
Oh, yes, he can.
No,
You
Brandon.
didn't watch my video.
Oh,
But I am of the belief he can.
Brandon, you
Well, you
know,
have to come back.
We're way over time.
wow, so many different hot takes coming from the couch. We really appreciate you guys being on the show. And yeah, like Adam said, we'll have you on next time you're in LA.
Yeah.
Love to.
And
Thank you for having us.
yeah,
Of course.
thanks again.
Thank you both. Wrap us up, Adam.
I'm gonna wrap you up, guys. You know what to do. Go follow us on social media. Check out everything else we're watching. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Heroes Reforged is gonna react. Heroes Reforged is gonna review. Heroes Reforged is gonna discuss. That's why we are watching.